There is a pronounced vibe through the seat at 6,000 RPM and it actually tickles your bits. I'm not going to lie, it's quite pleasant. This is Honda's CB650R. Now this has been around since 2019 and I know that because I bought one. Now the category that this bike sits in is super competitive. There are so many other options. So in 2026, does the Honda CB650R still compete against all the rivals, or is it a bit long in the tooth? Let's throw our leg over it and find out. Yeah, so there she is, the Honda CB650R 2026 version. This one has got the e-clutch system, which does stick out a hell of a lot, but we'll get into that. So they've made a few updates from 2024. So we've got slightly different looks, different headlight, different scoops, revised seating, revised padding, but it is still essentially very similar to the 2019 version. So there's the dash, start that up. This is a new dash, it's the full colour TFT jib job. We've got reset your trip, you've got lots of different, so there's e-clutch settings, you can change how the actual shifting feels. But anyway, we're just going to jump on it. Let's do that. Yeah, we've got a 810mm seat height. I'm 5'8" with a 30-inch inseam, and I can totally flat foot it, so if you're around my height, you should be okay. As I said, this has got the e-clutch system, that whacking great thing there, but you've still got a clutch and you've still got a gear pedal. So the e-clutch system, essentially all that does is it does the clutch operation for you. If you want it to, you don't have to because you've got a manual clutch. So if I pull that in, I can still jump into first, let the clutch out, and that's like a completely normal bike. However, if we go back into neutral, you've got this little green button there, that means the e-clutch system is ready. And if I don't use the clutch and just shove it into gear, it doesn't stall because the e-clutch system is doing all the clutch for us. So let's just go around this car park and see what the e-clutch system is like. And also, if you want me to do a more in-depth e-clutch video, let me know. So we're just feathering the throttle very slowly, very gently, he says. So if I do come to a stop, it just operates the clutch for me. You see I didn't touch the clutch there. It's all done for you. So if you are worried about clutch operation, the e-clutch bikes could be a good option because you've still got a clutch if you want to then progress from the e-clutch to a clutch. Both options essentially, but it's not an automatic bike. It doesn't do any shifting for you automatically. You do still have to manually change the gears with your foot, but it has got that quick shifter system all built into the e-clutch ecosystem. And it still does that neutral from first to second. That is just a CB650R thing. My 2019 one did it, and I don't know, they've never fixed it, but there it is. Let's try that again. Let's see if we can get a smoother gear. There we go, we got it this time. It does seem like when the engine's a bit cold, it just does that. It's a bit annoying, but there you go. We're on to the negatives already, blimey. Right, no, let's not be like that. So yes, the 2026 CB650R. Is it still any good in 2026, or is it just completely eclipsed by the competition? And you know, this is the middleweight naked section, and it's so fierce. There are so many rivals to this bike. You know, MT-07, Trident 660, GSX 8S, GSX 8T, even Honda's own CB750 Hornet. That's competing against this bike for your hard-earned cash. There's also the Kawasaki Z650 to a lesser extent, because that is a little bit underpowered. I think you've also got the likes of CF Moto 675NK, which is a good option. It's a triple. It does look quite smart. But yeah, do those bikes completely eclipse this, or is this can this still hold its own? You know, one thing that the CB650R does have that none of the competition has, so it is a unique selling point of this bike, it's the inline-four engine. This is the only bike in the category, unless you can think of anything else that has this engine. I can't think of anything else in this middleweight naked category that has an inline-four engine. It's making around 94 horses, 63 newton meters of torque. I'm not going to go massively into the tech specs in these videos. You can always check the Honda website if you want the nitty-gritty of the tech specs, but I'm essentially going to go over each component, give you a little tech tease, shall we say, and just tell you how I think it performs. So yeah, it being an inline-four, it's very, very smooth in sort of all gears. And if you are new to riding, you've just passed your full bike license, this could be a good option. Now that might not make sense if you're in the US, where you pass, it seems you can pass your bike test and just go and buy anything. That doesn't work like that in the UK and Europe. You have to pass different levels of training, and you actually start your biking life on a 50cc or a 125, and then once you pass your full test, you can do an A2 license, which limits you to 47 horses. I think that's because of an age limit. Once you get past that age limit and you do your full test again, it does seem to be a lot of tests, which I think they're changing for the UK and Europe, thankfully. Yeah, then you can get unrestricted access to any motorcycle you want. But for the sake of argument, let's say you've just passed your full test, you've done all your training. Should you buy a CB650R? You should certainly consider it, because it is still a good option, I think. I'll get into why that is and how it fits in with the other competition shortly. But let's roll on a bit of power. It's just remarkably smooth, that engine. It's blooming lovely. I do have a little bit of a soft spot for the CB650R, having owned one for 2 years. The OG 2019 Gen 1. I loved that bike. I did a big German tour on it. It wasn't comfy, and if you want to see that Germany tour, there's 2 episodes already up. I will be doing the rest. That was a video I did some time ago, so yeah, it has taken me a long time to get to this point, I know. But anyway, let's move on from that. So you can tour on it. It's not particularly comfortable. However, Ergo's and comfort on this bike, they've certainly done something with the seat. It feels like it's got a lot more padding. The 2019 bike, the seat was almost like a medieval torture device. It was absolutely horrific. So you can imagine the pain of doing 6 or 7 hours on that bike. But I think this would be a bit better. Obviously, I don't really get time to do a big tour with each press bike I get. I only have them for 2 weeks, but I'd like to ride them as much as I can. So my knees are quite bent. That's something I struggle with on longer journeys. My knees do hurt, but I'm an old git, so you might not have that issue. Bars are actually wider than you'd think. They're not like clip-ons. They're not perfectly straight either. Got to look where you're going, Dan. It helps. Seating position, I feel a little bit bent forwards, but it's not like my upper half. Let's do that. My upper half isn't uncomfortable. It's, for me, it's always my bottom and my knees. Those are what fail me. But if you're a younger person than I, you might not have any issues. But it's something I think you need to be aware of. For big long days, I would say this might not be super comfortable. Felt a little bit of a jolt from that E-clutch system then. Oh yeah, it goes when it wants to. So yes, it's got some power. You know, 94 horses isn't what I'd call a low power. It's quite at the top end of the range for the middleweight naked category. Most of the other bikes make less power than that. Engine is quite nice. There is a pronounced vibe through the seat at 6,000 RPM, and it actually tickles your bits. I'm not going to lie, it's quite pleasant. It does tickle my gherkin quite nicely. Actually, no, it's not my gherkin, it's my, how do I put this delicately? It's my bollocks. Yeah, it does tickle them. But it's quite pleasant. If you're a lady and you've got one of these and you've ridden one, let me know what that's like. I imagine that could be a little bit fun. Anyway, let's so yeah, it does have some vibes at 6,000 RPM, mainly in the seat area, which is where your bits and bobs are, so that's interesting. Honda engineers have designed a little bit of thrill in the bike. Thank you, Honda, you naughty engineers. Right, let's talk about the suspension. Now, we've got some Showa big piston forks up front. Interestingly, the 2019 version didn't have the big piston versions of these forks, it just had Showa separate function fork, but these were updated. I think it was 2024 maybe, or it might have been earlier than that, maybe 2021, 2022, but essentially they got bigger pistons. Now, I'm no technical engineer wizard, so if I do get stuff wrong or explain it very poorly, that is why. But you know what it's like, the internet, there's always someone more knowledgeable than yourself, and I do not claim to be the font of all technical knowledge. However, yes, bigger pistons, which essentially means it's got nicer damping. The real world result of that is the damping just feels a bit more plush, when you go over a big bump, the bike feels more composed. It doesn't like crash through the stroke. It feels a little bit more composed to me. That's how I would explain it. They did revise the rear settings for the shock as well, but as far as I know, from 2024 onwards, it's all got the same stuff. It's all still the same settings, adjustable monoshock, preload adjustable only. The front you've got no adjusters at all, but you know, as a road bike, I think the handling is firm but sporty. It's not bad. I don't mind it. It's not the most nimble handling machine out there, but we'll get into that because I want to talk about that versus the competition. But suspension, you know, when you're just doing normal riding, it does feel quite nice. It's definitely towards the road end of the spectrum. Very sort of planted, very stable, does everything you expect. I would say when you start to push it kind of starts to show where its limitations are a little bit. You know, when you really push it into a fast tight bend, like long sweepers, it's quite nice, but when you're like changing direction quickly, it seems to need muscling around a little bit. It's very, very linear, but it's a hell of an experience when you get towards the top end of the RPM. So this thing makes peak power at 12,000 RPM, and when you're up there, it kind of slowly pulls all the way up to that red line. But there's a lot of joy from that exhaust note and the engine just screaming away. I get a lot out of that. That's fun. God, the roads are absolutely horrid today. Yeah, so engine is just a bit different. It's a bit of a screamer, and that's very different from the competition, which seem to be mostly parallel twins these days. There's a few triples in there as well. You know, it's not good or bad, it's just the way the market has gone. I think parallel twins are easier to manufacture, they're slimmer, you know, you can make smaller bikes. And that's where we're at with it. You know, torque-wise, it's not got loads of torque. You do have to get the revs up to feel like it's making any progress, but it's not dead low down. It has got, you know, a little bit of oomph. Yeah, sort of like 4 to 5,000 starts to pick up a little bit. Not too bad. Brakes are okay. You've got 4-piston radial calipers. That's radial, not radio. If the subtitles are on and it says radio, it's wrong. They're a little bit wooden, I'll be honest. They don't have too much feel. They're sort of like bite, and yeah, you just feed more power into it and it stops you quicker, but there's no real progressive feeling. They just are. They just stop you. And they're decent, there's just not much feeling. That's what I would say. But adequate for the bike, for sure. Well, more than adequate, really. Let's talk about some electronics. Now, obviously, we've got a new TFT dash. That's from the new sort of Hornet Transalp. All that's jazz. Seems to be on a lot of their bikes. That just saves a few coins, doesn't it? And it does the job. It's, you know, it's got everything you need. You've got your rev counter, gears, gear indicator, fuel gauge. You can do trips and average consumption. And you've got this little right menu. You can actually have that sort of come out. If I do, no, if I have to hold it down. No, I don't think it wants to let me play with it while I'm riding. That's what she said. But you can have a little sort of that bit come out and have a bit more information there, such as average MPG or trip time and that sort of stuff. It does the job. It's not the fanciest dash, but it's functional. You know, I'm not overly precious about dashes not being beautiful to look at or whatever. Yeah, to me it's functional and it's okay. Pretty easy. You got switchable traction control. Honda call it HSTC, Honda Selectable Torque Control, which is just a bit of a marketing word salad for traction control. And you do that, you switch that off by holding this button here, and you hold that up. You can do that while you're riding, and there you go, traction is now off. If I hold that up again, ta-da, traction is back on. Oh, look at that twat. What an absolute twat. And you can smell the one is speeding through a town, and I can smell the devil's lettuce. What a bell end. Yeah, so, you know, switchable traction control. There's no riding modes, so I think it's still cable actuated throttle. Yes, it is. Which means the throttle sort of actuation is lovely and smooth. Yeah, it's nice. no snatchiness at all. There's a little bit of free play in the throttle grip, but you can actually fix that. I did that on my bike. They just seem to come like that out of the factory. There's a bit of free play. Just going to touch on the suspension again. This is quite a bumpy road, and my bike seemed to be a little bit more harsh on these sorts of bumps, these fast undulating bumps, and that's where I think the big piston forks and the revised shock do a better job of just giving you a nicer experience. It's just a bit plusher. I like it a lot. It's very nice. Yeah, it's not the most agile handling bike, but it's fairly planted and fairly stable, I'd say. I think it looks nice. It's that Neo Sports Cafe they call it, but it's a retro look essentially, and I suppose now you've got the Suzuki GSX 8T to compete against it. They do look very similar at a glance. That's what I found anyway. First gear actually is quite frisky. Again, I do think if you're fairly new to riding, that's it'd be quite easy to learn some new skills on this bike, because it's not all low down power. It's not instant torque. It builds quite gradually. I think it's a good bike for newer riders. I won't say your first big bike, because you do still need to go through the smaller CC bikes, but yeah, you know what I mean. So it's up against quite a lot of competition. So you've got things like the Trident 660, which has just been updated. It's now got the Daytona 660 tune. You've got the MT-07, the GSX 8S, you've got the GSX 8T, you've got Honda's own CB750 Hornet, which is quite funny because this bike essentially is the spiritual successor to the OG Hornet. So the OG Hornet was an inline-four 600cc motorcycle which came out in the 90s. I had one. I had a 1996, I had a 98, I had a 2004, I had a 2006, and I think the last one I had was a 2010. So I've owned every generation of old school Hornet, and that's exactly why I bought one in 2019, because for me it was essentially an updated Hornet. And back in 2019 they hadn't renewed the Hornet name. That was not a bike they'd announced. And the new Hornet is obviously very different. It's a parallel twin, it's lighter, it's more agile, it's more flickable. So if you're into your old school Hornets, your old school inline-four Hornets, this CB650R still scratches that itch, I think. What else in terms of competition? There's the Z650 from Kawasaki. It's a bit dull in comparison, I think, but you know, it still exists, so we mention it. And the 675NK from CF Moto as well. Now, interestingly, all of those bikes are lighter than this. This, with the e-clutch system, that whacking great thing there, weighs in at 206 kilos, which I think is about 4 kilos heavier than the version without it. Now, I'm not sure if they're even offering this CB650R without the e-clutch anymore. I can't see it on the website. It only seems to have the e-clutch version. But let's just do a quick walk around. It does look pretty. So they've sort of taken the light from the CB1000R, not the Hornet, the previous R, which is more of a retro thing. Got these new intakes, which I don't like. I like the previous one. Previous 650R intakes were better looking. But there's your 4-piston Nissin radial calipers. There's your Showa big piston forks. I do like the colour of these actually, and the colour of the wheels. Tyres, we got Dunlop Sportmax Road Sport 2. They're okay. They're not amazing. They're not terrible. If I bought this bike, I'd probably keep those on for a good while, wear through them, and then get something a bit stickier. I think the tank is 14.5 litres. I think it's good for around about 150, 160 miles. You could push it further than that if you wanted to. Seat has been updated. That's got a lot more padding, and I think the pillion seat is a bit wider as well this year. We've got an interesting plate holder. Now in the UK there is a law which says the rearmost part of the bike has to be the number plate. That's why our number plates are so flipping big. And the number plate size, that's just what our government say is, you know, the law. So that's what we have to have. There's the rear light, which is the same on many of their bikes, including my Hornet 1000. There's your rear wheel, big 180 section. Somewhere in there, covered in muck, is the Showa monoshock. Pillion pegs. I have taken my lady on the back. She says it's okay, but not the most comfortable position. And beyond the e-clutch system here, which is all this gump in front, there's the inline-four motor 649cc. got quite a nice exhaust note, actually, quite deep, until it gets screaming up into the revs, and then it sounds like a flipping F1 car. Right, I'm going to get myself a coffee. Oh, and of course, before I do that, there's the lovely inline-four sweeping headers that come down. That does look beautiful. Anyway, I'm going to grab myself a coffee, and then I'll tell you what I think about this bike and how it stacks up to the other bikes in the competition, and if it's worth buying one of these, or if you should just write this off and just get something else. See you in a bit. So, yes, CB650R. I did forget one of the rivals, actually, which is the KTM 790 Duke. They are still making it, and I think that definitely sits in the middleweight naked category for sure. But let's go for a quick ride, and just finally answer that question, is this bike still any good in 2026? Right, we'll stick it in gear. No clutch needed. And off we go. I do find the e-clutch system a little bit... At low speed it can be a little bit it can surge a little bit. Hello, surge. Sure. Yeah. So, yes, how does this bike fit into the category? I think it's starting to show its age a little bit. It's the heaviest bike in that category. I think the closest rivals in terms of weight are the Suzuki 8S and the 8T. They're about 202, 201 kilos. But the biggest difference in weight is with the MT-07, and this is 23 kilograms heavier than that. And then, of course, you've got all the other bikes, the Trident 660, the CF Moto 675NK, the Honda CB750 Hornet are all a lot lighter, and I think you do feel that. This does feel quite top heavy. And it's only when you sit on those other bikes and take them for a spin and do some sort of like change direction quite quickly, you realise that this bike is definitely the least agile out of all of those bikes. With maybe the exception of the Kawasaki Z650. Now, it's been so long since I've ridden that bike that I've kind of forgotten what it feels like. But yeah, they're all lighter than this. This feels... It's strange, the kind of front end and the steering angle isn't very good on this. And it really reminds me of like a sports bike in terms of the steering angle. And also it reminds me of a sports bike because of the inline-four engine. So it does feel a little bit like an old school sports bike that's just been turned into a naked. We used to call that street fightering a bike, because generally what would happen is someone would crash a CBR 600 and then go, well, I've already knackered the fairings, so I'll just take those off and call it a street fighter. To me it feels a little bit dated. I don't think I'm being unfair, but it's only when you ride those other bikes you kind of feel that they're a lot more agile. Most of them make their torque a lot lower down. I've not ridden the CF Moto 675NK, I have to admit. It certainly stands out in the category, I think, this CB650R, because of the inline-four engine. I think it looks absolutely beautiful. It's a really pretty bike. So in terms of aesthetics, you know, that might be why you choose this bike. There isn't really much else like it other than the new GSX 8T, but I think this looks better than that. But they do look similar in some ways. I think you should probably consider the CB650R, because if you're a little bit older like me, it reminds you of those good old days of the inline-four naked bikes, like the Hornet. You know, most bikes these days are parallel twins. We do have the triples in there, the 675NK and the Trident 660. Probably the most appealing to older riders because of the kind of old school nature of the design philosophy of this machine, and the fact that it's got an inline-four, which just seems to be an old school way of doing things. But I'm glad it still exists. I'm glad it's still around. You can still get your inline-four fix. You know, it's a very, very feisty engine when you get it right up to the top. It does sound fantastic. Ah, the road might be closed actually. We will have to see. Is it closed again? I think it's closed because of all the flooding. No, it's not closed today. It was horrendous flooding yesterday, so I am having to ride a little bit carefully just because there's a lot of crud around, and it is February, so it is quite cold. But you know, ride this bike in isolation, I'm sure you'd have a good time. And I always say, don't just take my word for it, don't just watch someone like me reviewing a bike and then go and buy a thing. You know, ride it for yourself, see what makes you laugh, see what fits you, your body shape, and also just your personality. I do find bikes do talk to your personality. You know, some people like the more sedate bikes, some people like the leery bikes. So yeah, I would always suggest to ride something before you buy it. Don't do what I do, because it is risky putting your own money down on something you've not ridden. I mean, it's still making me laugh, so that's got to count for something, right? Let's talk about some negatives. So the e-clutch system is the most obvious aesthetic negative. It doesn't look very nice, and certainly if the bike goes over on the side, you're going to have to deal with a lot of damage because it sticks out so much. If I were to buy one of these, I would have to get some kind of protection. You'd probably want, you know, if you're a new rider, you might even want some engine bars just to protect that e-clutch system. I said earlier that you're going to hit your leg, but actually while I've been riding it, I've not once touched the e-clutch system on my legs, so they've at least done a little bit of work with that, which is good. You know, it is heavy, it's the heaviest bike in the category, and you do feel that. It's quite top heavy actually. It does feel a bit top heavy, but you know, maybe I just need to go on a diet. I'm carrying my Christmas weight, alright, leave it alone. The brakes are a little bit wooden. I'd like a little bit more feel through the lever. They are just quite... But you could certainly change the pads over to something like EBC pads and probably get a bit more feel. And you could, if you wanted to, you could also do the braided hoses. This has got rubber hoses on them. Change your tyres perhaps, get a bit more feedback on the road. But you know, I'm not exactly going to be pushing it this time of year. Plenty to like about the bike. I love the inline-four engine. It's good that it still exists. It's got plenty of power for the real world. You can commute on it, you can tour on it. I think it's definitely more comfier than the previous gen, but I still think it's quite cramped. But it is that sort of bike, isn't it? The e-clutch system actually is pretty good, to be fair, and it's nice you got the option of the clutch as well. I did have a CB650R prior to this being delivered, and the battery ran flat. So actually I can talk about that as a bit of a negative, potentially for the e-clutch system. So the battery ran flat and I had to bump start the bike. And after that, the e-clutch system just did not work. It threw up an error and was like, no, I'm not working anymore. But the good thing was you still have the clutch, so I could still ride the bike. It wouldn't leave you stranded even if the e-clutch system does fail. So it's kind of good it's got a built-in redundancy, but also at the same time that's not ideal, is it? And I did speak to Honda about it, and they said what had happened is because the battery ran flat, it threw up an error in the e-clutch system, and what that needed is for it to be plugged into a Honda machine and that issue to be cleared. So it's something to be wary of. You might never experience that because the Honda press bikes come with trackers, and because the weather's been so flipping cold, I didn't ride the bike for a little bit and it just flattened the battery. But if you do have a tracker on your e-clutch Honda bike, do make sure it's on trickle charge, because if you do run it flat you might end up having the same issues as I had, and it will have to go back to the dealer and they'll have to plug it in to clear the fault. I don't know if Honda are going to fix that or do anything different. Didn't sound like they were going to, but you know, it's just one of those things. You know, these new systems, they do add a little bit of complexity to the situation, but I wanted to mention it and be honest. Just don't let your battery go flat, basically. I think that's good advice for anybody with a motorcycle. Right, final verdict then. Honda CB650R. Is it still relevant in 2026? Should you consider it? Yes, I think you should, because it's still got that uniqueness of the inline-four engine, the only one with it in the category. It's a lovely looking thing. For 90% of riders, this bike will be absolutely fine. It's fast enough, it's quick enough, it's agile enough. You can do sensible things with it, you can tour on it, you can do a track day on it if you wanted to. You know, it won't be the best at all of those things, but it will still be good enough. There is a lot of competition. It's the heaviest bike in the competition, so even Honda's own CB750 Hornet does feel a lot more nimble, a lot more agile, and a bit fruitier. But certainly I would consider it, because you know, if you're a bit old school like I am, or just an old git, this might be the sort of thing you enjoy. I don't think there's anything else I've missed. But if you have any questions, do drop a comment below and I'll do my best to answer you. I do try and get back to everybody, but sometimes there are quite a lot of comments on my videos. So I apologise if I miss your question. Oh, you've also got the emergency braking hazardy jobs, which I'll show you. Oh, you can actually change down while you're on the gas as well. So that's a positive for the E-clutch. Oh, the shifter as well is absolutely lovely. It's really nice. And you can change 3 settings for up and down, medium, hard or soft. And I've got it on medium for upshifts, hard for downshifts. And it's absolutely lovely. So I will give the E-clutch system its due. It does make the gear change experience very, very nice, very slick. Yeah, overall, CB650R still a great bike. Definitely worthy of consideration. Right, let's give it some beans. Ready? Oh! Yeah, that's still fun. That is still fun. Right, I think on that note, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for watching this video about the CB650R. Let me know if you want me to do a bit more of an in-depth video about the E-clutch system. Drop a comment below if you want that, or if you have any other questions, just leave a comment and I'll do my best to get back to you. And all that's left for me to say is thank you for watching. If you do go out today, do ride safe, but remember to have fun, of course, otherwise what's the point? And until next time, you take care. Peace.